My name is Sheik Abdullah Al-Harbi. I am 52 years old, and for most of my life I believed I was a man chosen by God. I was born in Medina, where faith is not something you choose, but something that is placed inside you before you even understand your own name. My father was an imam, a man whose voice carried authority even when he whispered. People respected him, they feared him, and from the moment I could walk, I knew I was expected to become him. My childhood was not filled with laughter like other boys, it was filled with memorization, discipline, silence. I remember sitting cross-legged on the cold floor before sunrise, my father's shadow stretching across the wall as he listened to me recite. If I made a mistake, his correction was immediate, not cruel, but firm. There was no space for weakness. By the age of 10, and I had memorized the entire Quran, people began to look at me differently. Their eyes carried expectation, pride. I was no longer just Abdullah, I was becoming Sheik Abdullah. At 13, men twice my age would kiss my head. At 16, I was leading prayers in the absence of elders. They called me blessed, chosen, pure. But there was something inside me no one could see, a quiet emptiness I could never explain. When I recited, my voice was strong, but my heart felt distant. When I prayed, my body moved perfectly, but my soul felt like a stranger watching from far away. I told myself it was normal, that faith was obedience, not feeling, that certainty was a decision, not an experience. Still, there were nights I would lie awake staring into darkness, asking questions I did not dare speak aloud. Why did God feel silent? And why did I feel alone even when surrounded by believers? But I buried those questions deep inside me because doubt was dangerous. Doubt was weakness. Doubt could destroy everything I was raised to be. Years passed. My reputation grew, my sermons became stronger, my confidence became convincing, even to myself. People trusted me, they brought their problems to me, believing I had answers. I became a symbol of certainty in a world full of confusion. Yet the truth was, I was performing a role I had never truly questioned. If you are listening to me now, I ask you to stay with me until the end. And if stories like this help you understand truth, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it. Not for me, but for those who are silently searching like I once was. Because everything I believed was about to collapse. And the night it happened felt ordinary. The mosque was calm. The air carried the familiar scent of carpet and dust. My students sat around me, waiting, trusting. I remember opening my mouth to speak, and then suddenly, without warning, a violent pain tore through my chest. My breath disappeared, my vision blurred, my body fell, and their voices became distant echoes fading into nothing. In that moment, I believed I was dying. I did not know that death would introduce me to truth. The first thing I remember was the sound of my own breathing, or rather, the absence of it. One moment I was collapsing onto the mosque floor, and the next, there was silence. Not the kind of silence you hear in a quiet room, but a complete absence of existence itself. No air, no weight, no pain. And yet, I was still aware. At first, I thought I was dreaming, and my mind struggled to understand what was happening. Then I saw my body. It was lying on the floor, motionless, surrounded by my students. Their faces were filled with panic. One of them was crying. Another was shouting my name, his voice trembling. "Sheik Abdullah, stay with us!" But I could not respond, because I was no longer inside that body. I was above it, watching. I felt no control over where I was, no ability to move. I was simply there, suspended in a reality that made no sense. Fear began to rise inside me, not the fear of pain, but the fear of helplessness. I had spent my entire life teaching others about death, about what comes after, about judgment and certainty. But now that I was standing at its door, I realized something terrifying. I did not know anything at all. The room around me began to fade, and the walls dissolved into darkness. The voices disappeared, everything familiar vanished, and I was alone. The darkness was not empty, it was heavy, alive. It surrounded me, pressing against me from every direction. I tried to speak, but there was no sound. I tried to breathe, but there was no air. And then something else began. Memories. Not gentle memories, but overwhelming ones. Moments from my life began to appear around me, clearer than reality itself. I saw myself as a boy, reciting words I did not understand. I saw myself as a young man, standing before crowds, speaking with confidence I did not truly feel. I saw every moment I had ignored the quiet voice inside me that questioned everything. Every doubt I had buried, every question I had silenced, I could not escape it. It was as if my soul was being exposed completely. And I realized then that titles meant nothing here, respect meant nothing, knowledge meant nothing. I was not Sheik Abdullah, I was simply Abdullah, and I was not ready. A terrifying thought entered my mind. What if I had been wrong? What if everything I believed, everything I taught, was incomplete? The darkness seemed to respond to my fear, growing heavier, deeper. Time did not exist there. It could have been seconds or years. I had no way of knowing. All I knew was that I was no longer in control. For the first time in my life, I felt completely powerless. And then, I felt something else. A presence. It was distant at first, but undeniable. I could not see it yet, but I knew I was no longer alone. The darkness began to shift, as if reacting to something greater than itself. My fear intensified, but beneath it, there was something else. And something unfamiliar, something I had never felt before. Hope. The darkness did not disappear all at once. It began to thin, like smoke being pushed back by wind. And then I saw him. At first, it was only light. Not blinding, not harsh, but pure. The kind of light that does not hurt your eyes, but reveals everything it touches. And from within that light, a figure stepped forward. A man clothed in white, radiant yet gentle, standing close enough that I could see his face clearly. His eyes were unlike anything I had ever seen. They carried authority, but not arrogance, power, but not violence, and compassion so deep it made my chest ache. I had spent my life rejecting images, rejecting depictions, rejecting any thought of form. Yet here before me stood someone more real than anything I had known. He did not introduce himself. And he did not need to. My soul recognized what my mind was afraid to accept. He looked at me, and when he spoke, his voice was calm but piercing. Abdullah. Not Sheik, not Imam, not teacher, just Abdullah. The name my mother used when I was a child. The name I had almost forgotten beneath my title. The sound of it broke something inside me. I wanted to defend myself, to explain my life, to list my prayers, my fasting, my memorization, my sermons. But before I could speak, images surrounded us. Not random memories, but moments that revealed my heart. I saw myself preaching with confidence while secretly feeling empty. I saw myself silencing a young man who had asked a difficult question because I feared the answer. I saw nights when I felt distant from God but told others their faith was weak. Every hidden thought, every private doubt, and every moment of pride stood exposed. He did not accuse me. That was what shattered me. There was no anger in his eyes, only truth and love. A love that felt unbearable because I knew I did not deserve it. "You knew," he said softly. "You heard my voice before." And suddenly, I remembered. Years ago, during my studies, I had secretly opened a New Testament given to me by a foreign visitor. I told myself I was reading it to refute it. But when I read the words, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," something inside me stirred. I closed the book quickly. I told myself it was deception, weakness. But now, standing before him, I realized it was invitation. "You followed religion," he continued, "but you did not know me." The words did not condemn me. They revealed me. My knees gave way. Though there was no ground beneath me, I felt the weight of my entire life pressing down on my soul. "Who are you?" I whispered, though I already knew. He stepped closer, and the light intensified, not burning, but warming. "I am the way, the truth, and the life." The words echoed through me, filling the darkness that had surrounded my heart for decades. I had quoted arguments against that statement. I had dismissed it as contradiction. But here, in his presence, it was undeniable truth. Tears I did not know I could shed flowed freely. "Why?" I asked. "Why show me this?" His answer was simple. "Because you asked." And in that moment, I realized every late-night question, every silent doubt, every whispered plea had been heard. The darkness was gone. Only light remained. And I understood something that shook me to my core. And I had spent my entire life defending God, but I had never known him. In his presence, there was no fear, only clarity. The light around him did not blind me, yet it revealed everything I had tried to hide from myself. I could no longer pretend. I could no longer protect the image I had built over decades. For the first time since I was a child, I felt completely exposed. And yet, I did not feel condemned. I felt seen. He did not speak immediately. Instead, the light shifted, and suddenly I was no longer standing in the darkness. I was watching my life unfold again, but this time I saw it differently. I saw myself at 17, sitting in a study circle, listening as an older scholar dismissed the idea that God could be known personally. "God is beyond relationship," the man had said. "Submission is enough." I remembered accepting those words without question, burying the quiet disappointment that followed. Then the image changed. I saw myself years later, sitting alone in a library. In my hands was a small book in Arabic, the Injil, the New Testament. I had told myself I was reading it for knowledge, to defend against it, but as I read the words, something inside me had stirred. "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives." I remembered how those words made me pause, how they felt alive in a way I could not explain. I had closed the book quickly, my heart racing. I told myself it was dangerous, forbidden. I convinced myself it was weakness. Now, standing in his presence, I understood it was not weakness. It was truth trying to reach me. He spoke again, and his voice steady and filled with compassion. I was there. And suddenly, I saw more. Moments I had forgotten. Moments where I had felt an unexplainable pull toward something deeper. Nights when I stared at the ceiling, asking questions with no words. Times when I felt empty, even as people praised my faith. He had always been there, not forcing, not threatening, waiting for me to see. The realization broke me. My entire identity had been built on certainty, on authority, on being the one with answers. Yet here I stood, realizing I had been blind to the truth standing in front of me. "Why did you not force me?" I asked, my voice trembling. He stepped closer, and his presence filled me with warmth I had never known. Because love does not force. Love invites. Those words shattered the last wall inside my heart, and I understood then that everything I had believed about God was incomplete. I had known obedience, but not relationship. I had known fear, but not love. Tears flowed freely as I stood before him, unable to hide my sorrow. "What happens now?" I asked. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked at me with eyes filled with both peace and purpose. And then, slowly, the light began to fade. Panic rose inside me. "Please," I cried out, "do not leave me." But his voice remained calm. "You will return." The darkness did not return with fear this time, it returned with understanding. The light disappeared. The silence returned. And suddenly, I felt pain, heavy, crushing. My chest burned, my lungs struggled, voices shouted around me. "He's breathing!" My eyes opened, bright hospital lights blinded me. My body was weak, machines surrounded me. And my family stood nearby, their faces filled with relief. But everything had changed. I was alive, but I was no longer the same man who had died. When I opened my eyes in the hospital, the first thing I felt was weight. Not emotional weight, but physical. My chest ached with every breath, as if my body itself was struggling to accept my return. The ceiling above me was white and unfamiliar. Machines surrounded my bed, their steady beeping reminding me that my heart was still beating, still alive. My wife was sitting beside me. Her eyes were swollen from crying. When she saw my eyes open, her hand flew to her mouth. "Alhamdulillah," she whispered, tears falling down her face. She grabbed my hand tightly, as if afraid I would disappear again. My brother stood behind her, his expression serious, but I could see the relief in his eyes. "You scared us," he said quietly. "The doctors said your heart stopped." His words echoed in my mind. Your heart stopped. They did not know what I had seen. They did not know who I had seen. I wanted to tell them, but fear held my tongue. How could I explain something I barely understood myself? The doctors called it cardiac arrest, a medical event, something physical. But I knew it was more than that, because I remembered everything. The darkness, the presence, his voice. In the days that followed, my body recovered faster than anyone expected. Visitors came constantly, students, colleagues, members of the community. They called my survival a miracle. They said Allah had preserved me for a greater purpose. I nodded politely. I thanked them. I played the role they expected, but inside, I was unraveling. When I tried to pray, the words felt different, empty, mechanical. My body moved through the familiar motions, but my heart was somewhere else. I could not forget his voice. I could not forget his eyes. At night, I lay awake, staring into darkness, replaying the encounter again and again. Part of me wanted to dismiss it, to call it a hallucination, a dying brain creating illusions. But another part of me knew the truth. It was more real than anything I had ever experienced. One night, unable to resist the questions burning inside me, I picked up my phone. My hands trembled as I opened the internet. I hesitated before typing the words. Then finally, I searched. Jesus in the Injil. My heart pounded as I read. His words were not like anything I had studied before. They were not commands demanding obedience. They were invitations offering rest. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I froze. The same words I had seen years ago, the same words he had reminded me of. I quickly downloaded a Bible app, hiding it among my other applications. I felt like a criminal in my own home. Every night, after my family slept, I read in secret. Each verse felt alive, as if it was speaking directly to the emptiness I had carried my entire life. But with every word came fear, because I knew the truth had a cost. And the closer I came to accepting it, the more I realized nothing in my life would ever be the same again. It did not take long for the change inside me to become visible. You can hide questions in your mind, but you cannot hide them in your eyes. My wife was the first to notice. One evening, after Maghrib prayer, she watched me carefully as I rolled up my prayer mat. "You seem distant," she said softly. "Are you still weak from the hospital?" I forced a smile. "Just tired." But she did not look convinced. I had led our household in prayer for more than 25 years. My voice had always been steady, confident. Now, when I recited, there was hesitation, not because I forgot the words, but because they no longer carried certainty in my heart. A few days later, my brother confronted me directly. We were sitting in my study, surrounded by shelves of religious books I had collected over decades. He closed the door behind him. "People are talking," he said. "They say your last sermon lacked conviction, that you seemed unsure." His eyes narrowed. "Is something wrong with your faith?" The question pierced me. I had asked myself the same thing 100 times. "No," I replied too quickly. "I am recovering." He studied my face for a long moment before nodding, but I could see suspicion forming. Rumors move quickly in a religious community, especially when the one rumored about is a sheik. Invitations to speak began to slow. Conversations felt tense. I noticed how certain colleagues watched me more closely, as if waiting for a mistake. Then the imam of the central mosque requested to see me. I respected him deeply. He had been a mentor for years. When I entered his office, he gestured for me to sit. His expression was calm, but serious. "Your near-death experience," he began carefully, "it has affected you." I remained silent. He leaned forward slightly. "Be careful, Abdullah. When a man faces death, Shaitan sometimes uses confusion to plant doubts." There it was. Doubt, the forbidden word. I felt heat rise in my chest. But not anger, fear, because what if he was right? What if everything I saw was deception? But then I remembered the peace, the light, the love that did not accuse. That was not confusion, that was clarity. "I am only seeking truth," I said quietly. His expression hardened. "Truth has already been given to us. To look elsewhere is dangerous." Dangerous. The word lingered in the air between us. In our culture, dangerous does not mean simple disagreement. It means consequences, shame, isolation, even threat. When I returned home that night, my wife was waiting. "Your brother spoke to me," she said, her voice trembling. "They think something is wrong. Tell me the truth." I looked at her, the woman who had stood beside me for decades, who had trusted my leadership completely. My heart broke. "If I told you I am searching," I said slowly, "would you still trust me?" Tears filled her eyes. "Searching for what?" I could not answer, not yet, because saying his name out loud would make it real. The pressure grew heavier each day. I felt trapped between two worlds, one built on my entire identity, the other calling me into something unknown. Then the ultimatum came. My brother returned, this time without gentleness. "You must reaffirm publicly," he demanded. "Lead Friday prayer, speak strongly, remove any doubt." His eyes locked onto mine. "Or people will assume the worst." I understood what he meant. Recant your questions, or lose everything. And for the first time in my life, I realized I was standing at a crossroads I could not avoid. That night I did not sleep. The house was silent, but inside me there was a storm. My brother's words echoed in my mind. Reaffirm publicly. To remove any doubt. Or lose everything. I sat alone in the living room long after my wife had gone to bed. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, marking seconds that felt heavier than years. I looked around at the life I had built. The framed certificates, the shelves of books, the photographs of my children graduating from Islamic schools. Everything represented stability, honor, identity. And yet, my heart felt like it was being pulled somewhere else. For the first time in 52 years, I did something I had never done before. I spoke honestly to God, not with memorized words, not with ritual, but with desperation. "If this is deception," I whispered into the darkness, "expose it. If what I saw was false, remove it from me. But if it was you, if it was truly you, I cannot live a lie." My voice broke. I was no longer Sheik Abdullah. And I was just a tired man afraid of losing everything. Tears fell freely down my face. I felt foolish, vulnerable, exposed. Eventually exhaustion overtook me and I fell asleep on the couch. That is when it happened again. I found myself standing in a wide open place, not dark this time, but filled with soft light, stretching endlessly in every direction. The air felt alive, peaceful. There were no walls, no boundaries. And then I saw him, the same presence, the same man clothed in white, but this time I was not trembling in fear. I was overwhelmed with longing. He did not replay my past. He did not show me my failures. Instead, I looked down at myself and saw chains wrapped around my wrists and ankles, heavy chains made of iron. I recognized them immediately. Fear, pride, reputation, expectation, and they were the weight I had carried my entire life. He stepped toward me without speaking. With a single touch, the chains fell away. They did not shatter violently, they simply loosened and dropped to the ground, as if they had no power at all. I felt something I had never felt before. Lightness, freedom. My chest, which had felt tight for decades, suddenly felt open. I could breathe deeply, fully. Tears streamed down my face in the dream. "You are not called to defend me," he said gently. "You are called to follow me." The words settled into my soul like truth I had always known but never accepted. I woke up suddenly, sitting upright on the couch. The room was dark, but my heart was calm. Completely calm. The fear that had controlled me for weeks was gone. Not reduced, gone. I knew what I had to do. I knew the cost, and then I knew I could no longer pretend. But clarity does not remove consequences. It only gives you courage to face them. And by morning, the consequences were already waiting. Morning came with a stillness that felt unnatural, as if the world itself knew what I was about to do. Sunlight crept through the window, illuminating the room where I had slept, where my life had quietly divided into before and after. I sat there for a long time, listening to my own breathing, feeling a calm that did not make sense. Nothing around me had changed. The same walls, the same furniture, the same responsibilities waiting outside that door. And yet, inside me, everything was different. I no longer felt divided. I no longer felt trapped between truth and fear. I knew who he was, and I knew I could not deny him. My wife was in the kitchen when I entered, and she looked up, her eyes searching my face immediately. She could see it. The decision had already been made. "Abdullah," she said carefully, "what is happening to you?" Her voice trembled, not with anger, but with fear. I wanted to protect her from the pain my words would cause, but lies had already taken too much of my life. "I saw him," I said quietly. She froze. "Who?" The question lingered between us, fragile and heavy. My heart pounded, but the fear that once silenced me was gone. "Isa," I whispered. "Jesus." The name itself felt both foreign and familiar on my tongue. Her face changed instantly. Shock, confusion, then denial. "No," she said, shaking her head. "You were sick. You were dying. Your mind was weak." I stepped closer, my voice breaking. "No, my mind was clear. Clearer than it has ever been." Tears filled her eyes. "Do you understand what you are saying?" "Yes." I understood completely. I understood the cost, the shame, the loss that would follow. But I also understood the truth. I cannot deny what I have seen." She stepped back, as if my words had physically struck her. That moment broke something between us that could never be repaired. By afternoon, my brother arrived. He had already heard. His face was filled with anger I had never seen before. "Tell me it is not true," he demanded. I remained silent. Silence was answer enough. His voice rose. "You are bringing disgrace on our family, after everything you were given, after everything you were trusted with." Each word carried pain. Not just his pain, mine too, because I knew he believed he was defending truth, just as I once had. "I am not rejecting God," I said quietly. "I am following him." He stared at me as if I were a stranger. "You are no longer my brother," he said coldly. The words settled into my chest like a final judgment. Within days, everything was gone. My position, my authority, my community. Messages stopped. Calls stopped. Invitations disappeared. People who once embraced me now avoided my presence. Some looked at me with pity, others with hatred. I became invisible in the world where I had once been honored. The loneliness was suffocating. Nights were the hardest. The silence was loud. The absence of everything familiar was overwhelming. But in that silence, I discovered something unexpected. Peace. Not the fragile peace built on acceptance and reputation, but a deep, unshakable peace that existed even in loss. I began connecting with believers online, to people who understood what it meant to lose everything for truth. They did not know my past. They only knew my faith. For the first time in my life, I was not valued for my title. I was valued for my heart. I had lost Sheik Abdullah, but I had found myself. It was weeks later when the final confrontation came. I had been walking quietly through the city market when a voice called my name. I turned and saw a man I had once considered a colleague, someone I had respected in the mosque for years. His face was tight, serious, eyes scanning the crowd as if to make sure no one was listening. "Abdullah," he said, approaching me, "we need to talk." We stepped into a quiet alley. His tone was low, but it carried the weight of judgment. "I've heard rumors," he said. "Your faith, your words, they are spreading. Is it true?" I nodded slightly. "Yes." He stopped, searching my eyes. "Do you understand what this means? You are risking your family, your reputation, your life. Are you ready to lose everything permanently?" His words were a dagger, but I no longer flinched. I had already felt the loss of everything that had once defined me: the respect of my community, the approval of my family, the admiration of my students, all gone. I had touched the truth, and truth had a price. "I am ready," I said quietly, though my voice trembled. "I cannot deny what I have seen." He exhaled sharply, as if expecting anger from me, but instead I felt only peace. "You know," he said slowly, "you will be alone. People will abandon you. Even your closest allies may turn their backs." I nodded. I had already walked that road. I had already felt the isolation, the judgment, and the whispers behind closed doors. "I understand," I said, "and yet I will not recant." Silence fell between us. The sounds of the city faded, replaced by the quiet of decision. I could see the doubt flicker in his eyes. Perhaps he had expected fear, weakness, hesitation, but there was none. I felt courage I had never known as Sheik Abdullah. "I choose truth," I said again, "even if it costs me everything." He stared at me, and for a long moment I thought he might strike me, shout, or curse me. But instead, he simply turned and walked away, leaving me in the alley with nothing but my own heartbeat. Alone, vulnerable, free. I stood there, feeling the weight of the world lift from my shoulders. The fear that had once controlled me, that had dictated every sermon, every word, every decision, was gone. In that moment, and I realized something extraordinary, I had lost everything that belonged to my old life, but I had gained something infinitely greater. My heart was no longer bound by expectation, my mind no longer imprisoned by doubt, my soul no longer silent, but alive. I whispered a prayer, not out of obligation, but out of love. Thank you for showing me your truth. And in that quiet, I knew I had never been freer. The confrontation was over, but more than that, I had passed the final test. I had chosen life, not the life of comfort, status, or approval, but the life of truth, of faith, and of love. I had found him, and in finding him, I had found myself. Today, I live quietly. I no longer carry the title of Sheik, no longer stand before crowds reciting words that feel empty to my own soul. I no longer have the status I once clung to, of the approval of family, the admiration of a community that once defined me. And yet, I have something I never had before. I have peace, real peace. A peace that does not depend on anyone's recognition, on anyone's respect, on tradition, or even my own accomplishments. I have a relationship, a living connection with the one who met me in the darkness, who spoke my name when I was lost, who removed the chains I had carried for 52 years. I live now by his guidance, not by fear, not by expectation, not by ritual alone. Each day is a choice to follow him, and each day I discover freedom in that choice. I look back on my life, on the years of authority, on the sermons I gave with certainty I did not feel, on the hidden doubts I buried, and I understand something clearly. God was never looking for my performance. And he was looking for my heart. My death was not the end, it was a beginning. The night I collapsed, the moment I thought it was over, became the day my real life began. I do not regret the losses. I do not grieve the titles, the positions, the applause. They were never truly mine to hold. What matters now is the life I live in him, the love I experience daily, the guidance I receive that no human authority can replicate. And if you are listening, searching, questioning, or afraid, hear this clearly. Truth does not destroy. Truth sets free. It may cost you everything you thought you had, but it will give you everything you were created to receive. I have found him, and in finding him, I have found my soul, I have found my life, I have found peace. And I pray that anyone who hears my story, anyone who feels the emptiness I once felt, you will have the courage to seek him too. He is real, he is loving, and he waits for you just as he waited for me. My old life ended the night I collapsed in the mosque. My real life began the moment I returned, changed, redeemed, and alive in the presence of the one who is the way, the truth, and the life.